Time and relative dimension in space, that's an easy one. Give me a proper question, come on. There were so many sort of extraordinary moments. It was a kind of 4.5-year odyssey, really. You sort of went in one end and got chewed up and spat out the other. And it was a sort of wonderful, crazy time, but it did feel like one long, mad, white knuckle ride at times. One of the most kind of out-of-body moments, one of the most surrealist moments, was probably the first read-through we had. And we read 3 episodes at the same time, and Elizabeth Sladen was there. And of course, I'd grown up watching her in Doctor Who. She was very much the kind of voice of that show. Her and the Doctor together, she had such a distinctive voice. And hearing her not only recreating that character that had meant so much to me as a small child, but to hear her recreating that character across the table from me in a script where I was playing opposite her. That was the moment that felt, because, you know, I'd been a huge fan of the show. It was very exciting to be part of this show that I'd always loved and that I'd written stories in notebooks for when I was a kid. So there was an extraordinary set of circumstances anyway. But moments like that, where it related very specifically to the same show that I remembered as vividly as having one of the main characters right there. Moments like that were probably the oddest, the most kind of vertiginous. They made your head spin, and they were thrilling and exciting, but also quite hard to really accept. Just felt impossible, really. I think people have their own favourite bits, don't they? Like people have their own favourite Doctor. It often depends when you sort of came to the show, when you fell in love with the show. People have their own favourite companion, so people will come up and talk about Martha or Donna. Or I suppose if there's one scene that gets referenced a lot, it's probably Bad Wolf Bay, and when the Doctor and Rose said goodbye. Just because it was a very powerful sort of emotional story, beautifully crafted by Russell T Davies and wonderfully played by Billie Piper. So I think it captured a lot of hearts and has lived with people. I mean, it's a love story, and love stories are kind of timeless, aren't they? Even if they are about 900-year-old Time Lords and 20-year-old women from Earth. I think if there's, I mean, hard to narrow into one, but I think that moment is the one that had a sort of emotional connection with people. So that's often one that people will talk about. I mean, increasingly, of course, the people I'm meeting, because it is a while ago now, are sort of all grown up, and they talk about experiences they had watching me on the TV when they were a child, which I find impossible. These fully grown adults talking about growing up with me, and I'm thinking, well, it was only yesterday, wasn't it? It wasn't yesterday. It was a whole decade or so ago now.
There's an old Earth saying, Captain, a phrase of great power and wisdom, and consolation to the soul in times of need.
What's that then?
Allons-y!
Doctor Who is unusual in the way that it follows you around, but people don't shout Allons-y, because Allons-y, I think if you're saying Allons-y, then you're a fan of the show. I think you understand. You know, I don't think people on the street who kind of shout things at you tends to be, "Where's your TARDIS?" Inventively, or if you're in some sort of public situation where, you know, there's a hold up in a queue or something isn't working or people can't get through a security gate, that's when people love to go, "Oh, I thought you'd have been able to fix this with your sonic screwdriver." At which point you think, don't you think this situation's irritating enough? Mostly that's what you get. I think anyone who says Allons-y is more likely to come up and sort of whisper it knowingly.
The Master left the nuclear bolt running. It's gone into overload.
And that's bad, is it?
No, because all the excess radiation gets vented inside there. Been bocce glass. contains it. All 500,000 rads, about to flood that thing.
Oh. Well, you better let me out then.
Except it's gone critical.
Particularly the way that Russell T Davies wrote the Doctor was just, every line was delicious to say.
Even this would set it off.
He often wrote the Doctor as he speaks, and Russell is a very wonderful, kind of gifted, funny, witty, clever human being. So to get his words was delightful. And you never get a straight answer out of Russell when you ask him about this. So many things seem to have been planted way, way, way in advance. And then, of course, he'd bring them to fruition years later. And I never quite know whether he sort of retroactively placed things or whether he always had master plan all along. The hand in the jar, when he chopped the hand off in my very first episode, did he know where that was going? I suspect not, but he sort of made it look like he did. And I suppose when he would do that, the sort of the love of language that I think it shows in the way Russell writes the Doctor. There's a joy, for instance, when the Doctor finally meets Russell Tovey's midshipman frame and finds out that his name is Alonso. The moment when he realizes he's going to get to see Alonso is almost, it's the moment before that's almost more joyous than the line itself. But there's something about that, something about the way sort of the strands were picked up, stories were sort of brought round. And in that case, even just a line was sort of had its final journey. I thought that was rather pleasing. I didn't take anything, I'd like to point out. Everything I may now have, I was freely given by production. I stole nothing. But I do have costumes. I think I've got sort of one each of everything. I mean, I'm the only person they really fit, so it's not like I'm depriving the BBC of any, important and valuable merchandise. I do have a sonic screwdriver. I do have the stethoscope that I used in a few episodes. I don't know what other actual bits from the set I've got. I've got quite a few boxes of plastic toys, which every now and again my children will discover and want to open them all. We open a few, but there's still a few sort of in their packets, still tucked away. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them, but it feels like I should have them somewhere. So yes, I initially there was so much stuff that got produced when we were doing the show. There were sort of endless kind of, some wonderful things, like the action figures and things, which are the toys that I had wished Doctor Who had when I was a kid. And then also some pretty weird sort of merchandising opportunities. And I did end up with boxes of some quite odd things. I never got any of the underpants, weirdly enough. There were underpants with my face on them, but I never scored a pair. I mean, I don't think they would have fitted me. I think they were made for 5-year-olds on the whole. But I don't think I've got any of them anywhere. And there were cakes, but they don't keep, do they? The kids do watch Doctor Who occasionally, yes. Yes. Well, they watch the new ones all the time, but now and again they'll watch ones that might have one or other of their parents in it, yeah, or indeed grandparents. It runs through our family like the middle of a stick of rock, really. So it's a sort of constant. So obviously it's just there. So it's something that is talked about quite a lot, yeah. And we all make sure we watch the episodes as they come out. And yeah, I suppose it always, for me, it always has been there. So I guess now it always will be. I've known Chris Chibnall for a long time because we did a show called Broadchurch together, as did Jodie Whittaker. We were all on that show together. In fact, I'd known Chris before that because he wrote on Doctor Who, and we'd been chatting about the fact that he was taking over, and he'd been sharing a bit of what he was planning, but not too much. He's very, very beady with the secrets, Chris. So you can't get very much out of him. I did know that it was going to be a female Doctor that was on the cards, and then I then spent several months kind of texting him various names to see what his reaction would be. A couple of times I thought I'd cracked it, and I hadn't. But I have to say, very early on, I did say, Jodie would be brilliant. And he didn't deny that she was in his sights, but neither did he confirm anything. So I didn't really know. Once I started thinking, who would you get to be a female doctor? Jodie was one of the names that I thought would be a great choice. But I knew no more than that until about 3 days before it was announced. And Chris called me up and said, the next doctor would like to speak to you. Would you speak to them? And I said, of course I will. And he said, well, they've got your number, so the next call you get will be from the next doctor. And of course, because I've known Jodie for years, her name then pops up on my phone. I suppose there was a chance that some extraordinary coincidence would happen and Jodie was just phoning up for a chat at that moment in time. But no, it was indeed, that was her with the news that she was going to take over. Yeah. Very exciting, very funny. We laughed a lot. I think her laughter was a laughter of sort of terror. Mine was a laughter of deep joy. People ask me this like it's in my gift, like it's my decision when I'll just stroll back out on set to Doctor Who and go, right, turn over, here I am. It doesn't really work like that, you know. I mean, I suppose the opportunity has historically been there for doctors to return to an extent. There will come a point where I wouldn't be able to get away with it. I wouldn't be able to fit the suit or get my hair to stand up on end in the way that I used to, or something. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? I suppose there's a 60th anniversary in a few years, isn't there? I suppose the question will inevitably come up. But it won't be for me to decide. I mean, it would be fun to do. Jodie and Peter and Matt are all mates now. It'd be wonderful to be on set with them. Chris, I don't know as well, but I'm a huge admirer of him, and I've always enjoyed meeting him. So it would be fun if we were all on set together. But sad that John Hurt wouldn't be able to join us now. I don't know. Listen, not for me to say. The more I speculate, the more I'll end up getting myself in trouble. So yeah. I think maybe what's been most unexpected is the way the show has spread internationally. It was always, I knew what I was getting into to an extent because I'd grown up with Doctor Who. I knew how well known it was, how ubiquitous it was in the UK, that it was part of a sort of, it was part of the cultural furniture here, and that being associated with that show will follow you, even if it had been an entirely unsuccessful outing, even if we'd been cancelled after 2 episodes, you would still have been associated with that show, and that show would live with you almost certainly forever, because it's something uniquely British and something that Britain is proud of and fond of, and has a fascination for. What I think maybe has been taking me a bit by surprise since is how it's now everywhere. And that, I think, has happened since then. I mean, I don't, certainly in America, even just after I finished Doctor Who, I could go to America and be pretty anonymous, and then the show sort of caught up, the popularity of it. And now it's certainly in America, it's certainly, I don't think I've been to a country in recent times and there hasn't been someone. I mean, you might go to Africa and be able to go out without wearing a hat, but it won't be long before someone notices and someone mentions Doctor Who. It's good. I think that's the bit that's taken me a bit by surprise, how international it became. I've never had an issue with the idea of moving on. I think it's part of it's built into the way an actor works. So for me, I just, when you're in the next thing, you're in the next thing, and you're 100% in that. It's not like anything else. So much had changed for me, professionally and consequently, personally, in that time, that to come to the end of that moment, you just don't know what that's going to mean, whether this will be the sort of the end of a chapter of your life or the beginning of a new one. Obviously, you hope it's going to be both. But I suppose it's unnerving to step away from something that's been so happy and so regular and secure. And yet at the same time, there's something about the kind of actor's life, which you're always slightly kind of ready for the next thing and slightly itchy of foot. But I was nervous and I was sad. I was just sad to be leaving what had been a very happy time and very aware that it was going to be very hard for anything else to compete with that. It had been such a happy time professionally. I'd loved the people I was working with. I loved the script. I did love and continued to love and always will love the show itself. So it was a peculiar thing to say goodbye to, because on one level it was a mad thing to do. But on the other level, I knew that I had to do that while it still felt exciting and fun and all the things that it did feel. I would have been very sad to still be there and for it to feel like I was just going to work, just going to do a job. I always knew it had to, because it had been such a special time, it was important that it remained one. And part of the trick for that, I think, is knowing when to move on. So there was all sorts of different conflicting emotions. But I suppose the keenest one was just the idea that it was coming to an end and that I wouldn't be working day to day with all these people that I enjoyed working with so much, that I wouldn't get a new Russell T Davies script through every couple of weeks. That was very sad to know that I wouldn't be part of telling those particular stories anymore. I don't particularly celebrate Doctor Who Day, no. But maybe we should. Perhaps it should be a national holiday. I think it probably should be a national holiday. Let's make it a national holiday.